Ellen Gould White stands as one of the most influential Christian writers in modern religious history. A woman of deep faith, powerful conviction, and extraordinary dedication, she became a guiding voice to millions around the world. Her life story is not merely a biography. It is a testimony of how God can use a weak vessel to accomplish a mighty work. Ellen Gould Hammond was born on November 26, 1827, in Gorham, Maine, into a devout Christian home. She was one of 8 children and shared a close bond with her twin sister, Elizabeth. Her parents raised their children to love God and respect Scripture, laying a strong spiritual foundation early in her life. But when she was only 9 years old, tragedy struck. While walking home from school, a classmate threw a stone that struck her in the face. The injury was severe. She was left unconscious for weeks and nearly died. The accident permanently affected her health and ended her formal education after the 3rd grade. What seemed like a devastating limitation became, in God's hands, preparation for a divine calling. At the age of 12, Ellen attended a Methodist camp meeting where she gave her heart fully to God. Soon after, she was baptized and committed her life to Christ. During her teenage years, she and her family accepted the preaching of William Miller, who taught about the soon coming of Jesus. When Christ did not return on October 22, 1844, an event known as the Great Disappointment, many believers lost faith. But Ellen did not. Instead of turning away, she prayed more earnestly for understanding and guidance. Only a few months after the disappointment, when she was 17 years old, Ellen experienced her first vision while praying with others. In that vision, she saw a representation of God's people journeying toward the heavenly city, guided by a bright light behind them. She did not seek recognition, position, or influence. In fact, she initially resisted sharing what she had seen, feeling unworthy and afraid. But she believed God had called her, and she obeyed. That moment marked the beginning of more than 70 years of ministry. In 1846, she married James White, a devoted preacher who supported her calling and believed her messages were from God. Together they traveled extensively, preached, wrote, and encouraged believers. Their marriage was not just a union of hearts, it was a partnership in mission. They faced poverty, opposition, sickness, and loss, yet they remained committed to spreading biblical truth. They had 4 sons, though only to live to adulthood. Despite personal grief, Ellen continued her work with unwavering faith. In the 1860s, a small group of believers formally organized what became known as the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Ellen White played a key role in guiding the early believers, encouraging organization, unity, and faithfulness to Scripture. In 1863, she received a vision about health and the connection between physical well-being and spiritual life. At a time when such ideas were uncommon, she taught principles of healthy living, proper diet, cleanliness, exercise, and trust in God. These teachings later inspired hospitals, health institutions, and wellness programs around the world. After her husband's death in 1881, many might have expected her to retire from public life. Instead, she continued working with even greater determination. She traveled to Europe, then later to Australia, strengthening churches, encouraging believers, and helping establish schools and ministries. Her influence was not limited to one nation. It spread across continents. Her mission was simple but powerful: point people to the Bible and to Jesus Christ. Throughout her lifetime, Ellen White wrote extensively, producing thousands of articles and numerous books covering topics such as Christian Living Faith and Pre-Regicasian Filed Life Profession, The Life of Christamon. Her most well-known works are Steps to Christ, The Desire of Ages, and The Great Controversy. Her writings have been translated into many languages and continue to inspire readers worldwide. Despite her limited formal education, her writings display remarkable depth, clarity, and spiritual insight. She consistently urged people not to follow her, but to follow Christ and study the scriptures for themselves. In 1900, she moved to a quiet home called Elmshaven in California. There she spent her final years writing, counseling church leaders, and encouraging believers. Even in old age, her passion for God's work never faded. In 1915, after an accident that left her physically weakened, she peacefully passed away at the age of 87. By that time, the movement she had helped nurture had grown from a small group of believers into a worldwide church. Ellen G. White left behind more than books and institutions. She left a spiritual legacy. She reminded people that true religion is not outward form, but inward transformation. She emphasized that faith must be lived, not merely professed. Her life testifies that God often chooses the humble, the weak, and the unlikely to accomplish His greatest purposes. Today, she is remembered as a devoted servant of God, a spiritual counselor, a messenger of hope, and a voice calling people back to Scripture and to Christ's story of Ellen White is not simply the story of one woman. It is the story of what happens when a life is fully surrendered to God. Her journey teaches us that limitations do not hinder God's plan, suffering does not cancel His purpose, and weakness does not prevent His power. Her voice still speaks through her writings, reminding every generation, trust God, study His Word, follow Christ. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss my next video.